You're listening to the Informal Mystic podcast, your destination for mind-bending conversations that explore metaphysics, energy medicine, and the mysteries of the universe. I'm your host, Blaire McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Informal Mystic podcast. Today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Chelsea Bryan, who is a hospice worker and just a connection of mine. We've been kind of connected for, I don't know, a while now, yeah? 3, 4, 5 months. I feel like this past summer, I met you, maybe. And then you came to one of my Haven events.
Yes, and so I was also at a cacao ceremony with you and Jen.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, those are always so fun. I love cacao. So when I put out my little feeler for podcast co-hosts, Chelsea was like, "I'm game if you are," and I'm like, "Heck yeah, I'm game."
I don't know what I was thinking. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're good. We're going to have fun. So today we wanted to just talk about just a general overview of the chakra system. And the way I want to use these episodes, well, the way I want to use every episode that I do, but especially these like really educational episodes, for people who are working with me, who are interested in working with me, I want to make sure we're kind of like on the same page. And so the chakra system is like the most like... Number one, it's been around forever. I don't even know if you can really get like a sturdy origin point for the chakra system because it's just been such a huge part of spirituality and religion.
My first introduction was yoga, which I went to after surgery and to like kind of calm and center and anxiety and just multifold. And chakras were talked about there, and I'm like, what is that? That's a fancy word. And then I've just kind of gleaned would be the best way to describe the information I've kind of gathered over this time.
I mean, it really is sort of like this accumulative experience. Like you just kind of get a little information here and a little information there and a little information here. And when I started working in the energy, it was like I knew about the chakra system. I didn't really use it. Didn't really know what it was there for. But then I dove into it, and it was something that really just made such perfect sense to me. It was one of those things that, I don't know if you've ever had this experience or not, but like sometimes you'll just find something that you know, and it's not hard for you to learn, and you're just like,
100%.
Oh, I get it. And so the chakra system for me was just like this gateway into perceiving and conceptualizing energy and archetypes in a way that I hadn't had the opportunity to before. And then I could kind of take that system and like look back and be like, oh, this is the chakra energy I was working in at this point in my life. Oh, this is what I'm working on right now. And just sort of like see my healing journey through the chakra system, really in like, hindsight's 2020, of course, but like, it was just so nice for me to be able to be like, oh, I did so much root chakra work in this season of my life. How do you use it as far as like healing goes? Do you feel like you have the capacity to kind of be like, oh, I'm healing my root chakra, or how does it feel for you?
Yeah. So I learned about it in yoga, and then when I started to glean more information, I started to realize that if a chakra is off, you compensate with another one. And how I saw this kind of come to fruition in my life is I had a intro with you, and I had already started down this path of deconstructing religion as kind of in the basic sense that everyone, I turned to religion to try to explain death when I was in high school. And then I lost both my parents in 2020, and that kind of shakes your whole world.
Yeah.
And so then it was, that doesn't explain it for me anymore. Something's not connecting. I know my parents are with me. I don't believe they're just in heaven completely unaware of what's going on with me, And so then I had a call with you, and we were talking, and you said, I really see your root and sacral as places where you need healing and work. And when we started to tease it apart, I mean, I would have thought you were psychic or somehow like had been watching my life for the last year.
Well, I do use the word psychic sometimes. I don't like it because it gives like Miss Cleo vibes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Call my number.
Yeah.
But like, it really
Gaze into my crystal
was
ball.
this like, I don't feel safety and I don't feel like I have fully come into my authentic self. And so, in turn, with not having the groundwork laid in that root and sacral, therefore I would overcompensate with like my voice, and I am a loud person. I will talk to almost anybody. But then it's like it wasn't always from love. And we always want to come from a place of love and compassion.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to be that. But then sometimes I would say stuff and I'm like, ow, that hurt, that hurt me coming out of my mouth. And so I've also noticed that like my intuition in that third eye can be off. And I'll be trying to get signs from my family members or loved ones. And I can't access that point because I'm not sitting in safety. I'm not sitting in ground. And even like what I shared with you earlier before we started all this, like being in hospice, it's interesting because that safety, that security, that comfort is something that people at end of life, you can see them go from so restless and thrashing all over the bed to hearing a loved one, and they won't open their eyes, they won't anything, but they just hear this loved one's voice go, I love you, you're safe, you're okay. And it's all calm. And it's like it hits that nerve and they're good. And it's like that, you know. And then if you think about it in babies, they're crying. They don't feel safe. They don't feel secure. They have a need. And so kind of connecting all those dots as I've gone down this road has been informative. And it's, you know, life is the best teacher sometimes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it has been that for me. And kind of growing into myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it perfectly. Life really is the best teacher. The thing I find so interesting is that you don't really have to have access to the chakra system to like heal, right? Like you can, there's a million ways to heal. You don't have to know anything about
right way, yeah.
archetypes or energy, but it's such a beautiful categorization system for us that it is like why wouldn't you want to access it, you know? Like and I feel like you said something about this, but there's like we may have said it before the podcast began, but there's like a hierarchy of need, right? Like Maslow. I'm always talking about Maslow. I love that guy. I love that guy. But the root chakra really is really like the foundational chakra
Basic
of
needs,
this human experience. If you don't have safety and security, then what are the chances that you're going to be able to go into a meditative state and get in touch with your guides? Right. So we've got this journey sort of upward through the chakra system, and we began at the root chakra, which is that archetypal storage space for safety and security. I think it's, and that have more episodes in the future where I'm going to be talking about the lower chakra system and the upper chakra system and the heart chakra. But just to kind of briefly cover what all these chakras are, the root chakra would be safety and security. The root chakra is also responsible for like our carnal, animalistic connection to the earth, right? And so safety and security, yes. Also, like we're animals, where we are consciousness in this animalistic body having a human experience.
And that's why we constantly rotate with the seasons. I mean, this idea of seasonal living or seasonal shifts is so, it feels so like duh when I heard it.
I know.
But I never did it.
I know.
And now that I am, it's crazy.
She says she is, and I was about to say, I'm still not doing it.
No, and I'm not perfect. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Not perfect by any means. But the fact that now it's like, oh, it's winter and it's okay to want to retreat. Yeah, inward. That's okay. And that's crazy to me. Fathoming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we've have this built-in I was
Compass.
gonna say system, but yeah, it really is like a compass. I'm trying not to use the same word 700 times. My favorite word is system and experience. I say experience like 1,000 times a podcast. We should keep a tally. You could turn it into a drinking game at home. But system, like it is a system. We've built in these cycles for the self, and that root chakra energy is really like, what are our transcendent animalistic cycles, and how do we leverage them in our favor? So yeah, if we moved up a chakra. Okay, so the root chakra is at the base of the spine, and it sort of encompasses. This is a funny story. I'll tell you this funny story. It encompasses the genitalia, to put it as fancily as I can. When I'm talking to my friends, I'm like, it's the butthole chakra. Yeah, I'm real middle school about it sometimes. But when I first started using energy and like aligning my chakras, I'll do a practice where I'm doing like a chakra cleanse or like a flush or alignment or whatever you want to call it. But I'll be in a meditative space. The root chakra is red. I'll call in red energy from the universe, root chakra energy, whatever you want to call it. And you put it in through the crown chakra, and it goes down through the Sushumna, which is like the tunnel that energy travels in the energy body. And I would get it into the root chakra, and you put it into the front and the back of that chakra, and then it exits the chakra once it's kind of done its work and aligned and healed that flow, and then you put it into earth. And I would find myself like trying to avoid my private parts.
Don't
like,
leave.
Like, I know, like, oh, I'm aligning my chakra, but let's just avoid any kind of gross area. And then one day my guides were like, the root chakra is kind of like, that's its thing, right? Like, it's like very human, and like something that's very human about our experience is like how we expel waste and how we procreate. Like, do you know that that's part of it, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, the religious indoctrination runs deep.
It's that, and I think it's that I can't think of it now, but almost like that patriarchal theme of like sex is, you don't talk about sex and whatever. And so I have actually been listening to Layla Martin, who does sex magic is one of her things too, but also about how sex and that exchange of energy, because that's what it is, can be so empowering and freeing. But like women struggle with it because we struggle with that root, that base.
Oh yeah.
And so of course we're not going to talk about it because that's bad.
Oh yeah.
That's what you were taught when you were little. You don't talk about the vagina. You don't.
We
use
didn't
the
even
word.
call it the vagina, did we?
No. The names.
My dad, I love my dad, but he would call it the front bottom and the back bottom.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
It's
some
still
great
crack up
names
about
that
that.
are just flower. These are tame
Cookie.
ones. Cookie.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So if you have children, please call the vagina and the vulva and the anus and the butt. Call it what it is.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all part of our human experience. I know it can make people uncomfortable. But just sit with that discomfort, because we're humans. We have a root chakra. The root chakra encompasses the genitalia. And it's really the origin of sex, in my opinion. Like, I think sex lives in every chakra, but if you're not having root chakra sex,
you're going to enjoy sex more when you're safe, secure in yourself and with the person you're having that experience with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, that would be the energy of safety, security, this very like carnal, animalistic human expression. And that's really sort of the foundation of our human experience. So, if you feel unsafe, if you're, if you're kind of avoiding, things like sex or things like, probably like menstruation, stuff, expelling
Intimacy,
waste,
yeah.
intimacy. If that stuff is freaky to you, then there could be some root chakra work that's like asking you to be done. So if we kicked it up one more chakra from the belly button to the let's see, belly button, maybe a little over the belly button to like, I don't know.
Liver area, kind of? No?
I don't even really know where my liver is.
Like
Let's
middle to
Okay.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. So like maybe an inch above my belly button to like 2 inches below my belly button, or 3 maybe. I don't know. That would be where the sacral chakra is. And the sacral chakra is orange. It's the energy of relationships. And so anytime you are active in a relationship with a person, but also really want to expand it and say, like, anytime you're in relationship with anything, right? Like, it's the ability to relate. And in order for us to relate, we have to be like separate. And so my relationship with the space that I'm in, my relationship with myself as sort of this divided person, my relationship with you, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my best friend, that's all sacral chakra energy. And this would be where codependency lives. My favorite
talking about.
Oh, you don't have that problem?
Not at all.
Daggone it. Unrelatable.
100%. 100%.
You got the codependency bug too. Yeah. I talk about attachment styles a lot, and I totally think that. So I would think disorganized attachment style would be like a real root chakra thing.
I'm very anxious attachment.
Okay, that's me, and I think that's sacral. So.
And I've noticed that.
Oh wait, no. Well, I mean, it's all of it really, but solar plexus would also be part of the anxious attachment style.
It's this. I don't recognize my own worth within myself. So how can I expect somebody else to?
Okay, yeah. It's that. So it's solar plexus would be the storehouse of like identity and like, who am I?
Yep.
And if you can't do that, then you can't really show up in a relationship. And so we compensate with that lack of solar plexus energy with an overabundance of sacral energy. Too much sacral energy, not enough solar plexus energy when you're anxious attached. And so for the longest time, I was like hyper focused on all my relationships. And I was sort of just like, what can I do to get this person to love me?
I went the opposite and became very independent.
Okay, well, that sounds a little avoidant.
I did not care about relationships. I did not care about, I had a small group of people.
Okay.
They were safe. They were okay. And even them, some of them ended up hurting me. And then it was like, well, then what or who do I need? I need myself. I got to show up for myself. And especially, I was with my partner, who I'm currently with. I was with him when both my parents died, but even then I almost started to rise up on my own because the people I love left me. How can I expect, if I can't show up for myself, how can I expect anybody else to? And so I became independent, but independent in the way that I wasn't even showing up for myself. I was just kind of burning everything in the path.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that very imbalanced view of it, of like, no, bad. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like an abandonment wound that will really skew your ability to be in a relationship. Right. And if you were modeled abandonment as a child, then how do you know how to show up for yourself? So how do you know how to trust others that they won't abandon you? And I also think there's some kind of energetic output thing that goes on too in relationships. I have my foster son, or he's no longer foster son. We adopted him this past year, but he has an insecure attachment style. And he is trying so hard to navigate these dating apps. I know. I feel so bad for him.
I can't say anything. I met my partner on a dating app, but it wasn't supposed to be long term, and here we are 5 years later.
You know, things happen.
They do. They do.
So he's really trying to navigate that, and he's like, we didn't even talk. He'll like match with somebody on the dating app, and he's like, we didn't even talk, and they like automatically blocked me. I don't understand what happened. Like, there's nothing I could have done any differently, and that's what happened. And I'm thinking that it's not necessarily like action based, like it's not him not doing the right thing. It's more of like an energy. Like, if you have low self-esteem and you're constantly projecting to the universe, like, I have low self-esteem, the universe is going to be like, this person is having the experience of having low self-esteem. And And so that's what I will match them with. That's what they're asking for. That's what I'm going to match them with.
Absolutely.
And so the beautiful thing is that general healing, it doesn't matter where you heal. Your healing, okay, that's why they call it raising your vibration.
It'll start to restore the balance
Of all things. Yeah. So you heal a thing and then your vibration is raised and you're no longer putting off this like energy of I have low self-esteem. You're putting off an energy of like I'm developing my self-esteem. Right? And so then you get more opportunities to develop your self-esteem, not just constantly have your self-esteem crushed by like
and seeking
immediate rejection. Yeah. So, yeah, I find it really interesting that, a lot of times it's not like it, like there's just so many coincidences. I want that. I don't want that word to be plural like that, guys.
I don't,
I don't know what it would be.
is
Coincidence.
I don't know that there is.
Coincidences?
I think there's experiences that they happen to you for a reason. Granted, not every. I can't explain a reason why both my parents got cancer and died. I can't explain that with a reasoning, but I can't explain that it happened, and I either have to rise to that or retreat. And for me, retreat has never really been an option.
Yeah.
And I can so identify with your son on that as a double Scorpion. I suck at like, how's the weather conversations or what's your favorite thing or how are you? Terrible. Like, let's get deep. Let's talk about it. Let's get in there and get dirty. And, like, that's me and how I've been, because that's when you get to know somebody. And I feel like that's when I can foster a connection.
Yeah, I agree. The dating scene is probably like so fraught. I don't know. Anyway, it's very perilous out there. And
I would think that a lot of people have an issue with that chakra.
Oh, yeah.
With the way dating has what it's become.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think it's serving us in some ways collectively. Like, it's really nice to be able to connect with people that you wouldn't have the opportunity to connect with otherwise. The dating pool just got massively wider.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, what are we losing when our very first engagement has to be some really quippy, like
left or right or whatever. Yeah.
Have you seen like there's like these quizzes people will do, like, okay, roast me in 3 sentences or something like that, and like that'll determine whether they get to stay talking. Like, they have to be really clever.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, there's like a test that they have to immediately pass.
No, thank you.
So yeah, but yeah, anyway, there's like, I was saying there were so many coincidences, but that, like you said, there really aren't coincidences. And these life things that take place are always a matter of energetic pull. And there's probably some soul contract energy in there too. When I say soul contract energy, I mean, you're up there in the ether and you're looking down with your soul team, which would be like the people that you've decided to incarnate with, or the people that you kind of have these like long-term extended relationships with in the other dimensions, other realms. And the soul contract would be like, I'm going to do this at this time. I'm here to learn this. And so absolutely some soul contract energy, but the rest of it's really this energetic output. You put off an energy, the universe will match you with it. And that is literally, that is love, right? The universe will not violate your free will by giving you something that you didn't ask for. And so even though you may not be consciously aware of it, you're asking for certain things with this energetic output and healing through the chakra system and any other mode of healing. When you heal, you will raise that vibration and you will attract new experiences that are things that you consciously do want. So if we go up one more, we are in the energy of the solar plexus, and it's a yellow energy. It's right below the diaphragm, and it is the energy of identity, the self, like who we are choosing to be in this incarnation. It's the energy of creativity. It's just this really fiery energy that sort of drives us. It's where we store desire. In fact, I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about desire and the solar plexus. But to me, I think that desire is an underrated thing. I think that we are experiencing, oh man, this is getting deep. But there's a timeline continuum. And so every potential possible life path for me is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I am just deciding what I want to align my consciousness with.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's this life, whether it's another timeline, whether it's, whatever. And I think that the only difference between these timelines that are manifesting constantly is desire. And so the slight difference in desire is the only difference between me here and me in another multiverse versal experience. And so if we follow desire from point A to point B, that's a life. And people don't get that. They're suppressing desire.
100%. I make the joke more times than I can count that the creativity gene was skipped in me. I don't feel artistic. I don't feel like I see beautiful artwork and beautiful art pieces. And I mean, even my body's adorned with tattoos, which is beautiful artwork, but it's from somebody else. I told them the representation I wanted and they brought it to life.
Oh, girl, do not downplay that, because
Right, but I would. And so that was the thing. I was like, I'm not creative, yet I desire this full, beautiful life. But if I can't even get creative in how I want to bring it to fruition, I mean, there's a disconnect there. And so I think
your self-expression is creative. She's sitting over there with pink hair, guys. She's got pink hair. Her eyeshadow matches her hair. She's got adorable malas. She's got cute little shoes on. Your self-expression is creativity. The way you express yourself is creativity. So don't downplay that. Like, I know I'm not out there.
The identity part then that I don't feel I've fully stepped into that, because I was never creative as a child. I wasn't creative as I grew up and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like the creativity, if I was creative, it's in problem solving.
Okay. I mean, that's still a form of creativity.
And it is, but it's hard because I feel like, and again, this is where I have to expand my understanding sometimes, is you say creative and I think art and, all this other stuff. And then that's imposter syndrome. I remind myself, but you're creative in problem solving. You can break down a problem and whatnot. And so it's just kind of expanding what a word can mean too.
Oh, yeah.
Like the meaning we attach to words. And I call myself a word nerd, because if I feel like you've not used the right word, I'll actually be like, are you sure?
Use that right?
Yeah, like, or you didn't use that right, or I think you mean this when you're, because our words carry weight, our words carry meaning, our words carry power. And like you said, it raises that vibration, raises what we attracts. I mean, it's cyclical. It's
well, then
also
let's
cyclical.
break down that word creative, right? Like creative is, I guess, the derivative or whatever would be creator and create. And just because you're not creating art doesn't mean you're not creating anything, right? So you have a different form of creating, right?
That's very true.
If we're talking about like the universe created it all. And so there's really not anything. If you create something, you're a creator and you're creative by extension. So yeah, you're absolutely creative. I just refuse to believe that someone sitting over there with pink hair, cute little septum piercing is not.
Well, and the hair was kind of a like, I don't care, do what you want. And my hairdresser went to town, and I mean, that's why I see her, because she's great, so.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. We'll continue exploring that. But so that yellow creative flow, that yellow being in touch with desire is such a huge part of the human experience that we don't really let air out very often. I don't think.
I think we're starving for a deep desire. I think a lot of people suppress that deep desire because
people are afraid of it.
Yeah. Because am I willing to sacrifice, or am I willing to do the work that needs to be done for that desire
to manifest. Yeah. 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 Desire's scary. I'll,
oh
I,
gosh, yeah.
I talk about it in session a lot, and it's probably one of those topics that is the most triggering, right? Because we culturally, I would say across the culture, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, we've been trained to suppress our desire in favor of like this patriarchal capitalistic system. But then if we continue down that same path, like especially women are taught to suppress their desires because I mean, we literally touched on it earlier, like we aren't allowed to experience sexual pleasure. We're not allowed to, well, I mean, for a long freaking time we weren't allowed to do anything. We couldn't have like a credit card back in like the 70s. We couldn't have a mortgage. And so there's just been a lot of like suppression of women, and we're still healing from that.
Yeah.
So it is one of the scariest things for me to be like, hey, in order to know who you are, you're going to have to figure out what you want.
Yeah, my mom was told, she was raised on a farm in rural Indiana. And when she told her parents that she was going to move, I think maybe 18 miles to IUS, Indiana University Southeast, to do nursing school, they like begged her not to. Don't do it. We don't want you to do it. They were actually mad at her because they didn't want her to leave small town and go into the big city and all this other. And it's like, but then when I was around, I never knew that until later on in life, because when I was around, they were so proud.
Oh, that's funny.
And so it's interesting how that can shift of like, my mom had this desire to do something and she did it despite being like are you willing to sacrifice your parents' disappointment
Yeah.
to
I mean,
go after what you want?
desire loses you things. That's for sure. That's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely for sure. You know, definitely that mother-father relationship. Because the mother and the father, I mean, we have some cultural archetypes right now that don't necessarily reflect real archetypal motherhood and archetypal fatherhood. But the theme right now is they're sort of projecting a lot of their hopes and dreams onto us. You know, we're their legacy, and we have to
do better,
do
one up. Yep.
Yeah. And, so yeah, you'll absolutely.
Who's to define what's doing better? Because to me, if you are loving and coming from a place of love and compassion and doing what you love,
yeah, that is better.
Isn't that better than the monetary per se or capitalist? You know, you had put a concept out there not too long ago that I really liked, of like soft hands, of not holding anything too tight.
Yeah.
Because it always has to be able to kind of move in and out. And so that is something I try to remember. Like, am I garnering this too tight because I'm operating from a place of scarcity, when in reality I have so much available to me if I'm just willing to
just open your hands, accept it, and really see it too. I think a lot of times we have so much and our perception is just off,
skewed.
Yeah, because we can't afford to be optimistic or really expand our understanding of what abundance could look like and could mean. So optimism isn't in right now.
No.
It's so much cooler to be like a
negative
pessimist.
Nancy. Yeah.
Oh, the world is coming to an end. I say that all the time. I'm like, this isn't going to win me any popularity contest, but I feel hopeful about the future. I feel hopeful about, in spite of all of the horrific things that are still taking place, we are waking up to it, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. And
we're not turning away anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I think the fact that if you can turn and see someone's suffering and meet it with compassion,
and presence,
and 100% just being present and space, providing it space, providing it a place to be heard, seen, valid, whatever. That's more than what was happening 10, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're making like insane leaps. We're making insane leaps. And, millennials are kind of like the laughing stock. Are you a millennial?
I just turned 36.
Yeah. So we're tied.
Okay.
I turned 36 in September. So,
November.
okay. Scorpio, you said?
Double.
Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
Another Scorpio. Anyone who's listened to my astrology podcast knows how I feel about Scorpios.
Are we loved?
You are loved because I am surrounded by Scorpios.
You're welcome. It's a treat.
It's literally like my husband, my son, my best friend. I just have so many Scorpios in my life. It's so funny. But yeah, you guys are just chaotic and intense, and it's 100%. Such a good vibe. It's a really great vibe. But yeah, so millennials are sort of the laughing stock. Everybody's like, oh, millennials, they don't want to go to work. Oh, they don't.
And we're going to ruin this world and country. Yeah.
But what I am freaking telling you is that millennials are shifting more ancestral pain and trauma, more paradigm bullshit. And we're doing it pretty much single-handedly. Like we aren't getting a whole lot of support from the older generations.
Tell me why it's so my nail artist literally last time I was in there a couple weeks ago said, how do you do inner child work?
Yeah.
Something her culture knows nothing about, and for her to know that that's a place she's got to start.
Yeah. It's freaking powerful.
Yeah.
Would our parents ask that?
Not
no
at all.
Offense, parents. I love.
I love my mom and dad.
I love my mom and dad.
Not at all. Not at all.
But they weren't the generation that is waking up the way that we are.
Correct.
Right? They were still bought in to what they were fed, and that's what their soul contract energy was meant to do. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we don't need to judge and be like, oh, okay, these boomers are awful, blah blah blah. We can objectively observe that generation is no longer serving the paradigm we're heading towards without judging that individual experience that they're having. But we are the ones that are waking up. We're the ones that are now okay with therapy. We're the ones we have single-handedly made therapy acceptable.
100%. And now you can get it.
You can get it online.
Online.
You can get it at
text.
Yeah.
All these different ways. And you're not broken if you go to therapy. Before therapy was, you're broken, you've been this or that.
Therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. And me, I'm just like, I need a therapist. Like, I need it. Like, I need water some days because
it's that mirroring that we really can't really progress without.
And working in hospice and trying to convince older people about grief counseling. You talk about it. Sometimes I'm just like, to have somebody not connected to go talk to could do you a world of good. But it wasn't it's still stigmatized.
Yeah. So do you have any success with that at all?
It's hit and miss. I think there are some people in the older generation that are definitely open to something's got to give. There's got to be a change because they've just had so many hits. Yeah. And then others, of that old way of thinking of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What if you don't got boots?
And what if they don't have straps, even if you do?
Exactly. We could argue.
It's such a silly thing. It's not a sustainable model of being. Like, nobody's going to be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps indefinitely, right? And like the amount of times we're getting pulled down compared to the amount of times we have to pull ourselves back up is just astronomical. And so it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not community oriented. It's so individualistic. It's so hyper self-centered, which again, all of this stuff, none of this stuff I'm judging. I'm simply observing, and I'm saying this stuff isn't serving us. And so, I love all people. I'm so sad that some of us had to have these experiences so that we could shift these paradigms. But at the end of the day, millennials, we're a laughingstock, but we shouldn't be because we're freaking owning this shit.
No, because we've changed the game.
Yeah, we changed the game. We made it okay for y'all to go to therapy. So please give us a little bit of love.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes in therapy, even just a different way of looking at it,
Uh-huh.
like to get outside of myself and my view and my feelings can be so empowering. And so, like, I never even thought of
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
and so I think, but some of that comes back to that work of needing to trust my identity and trust my
Mm-hmm.
experience and, you know,
Yeah.
the authenticity of it.
Yeah, and like trying to kind of table that imposter syndrome, or learning how to
Mm-hmm.
work with it, right? Like if we push imposter syndrome away from us, if we put it on the table like I just suggested, that's a great way to just remain in it indefinitely. You have
Mm-hmm.
to pull it in, you have to work with it, you have to like get to know it and really learn its mechanics so that we can shift it. So yeah,
Now,
if
when you
we
talk about doing shadow work, and
you're good.
is that something that kind of happens in that area all the same, or can it happen in all the chakras?
Good question. Let's see, where does shadow work live? I think again, it's sort of like sex. We're talking about how sex is just kind of lives in every chakra, but I believe that the shadow would probably also live in every chakra.
That would make sense.
In
Okay.
fact, if we were to like look at the concept of the shadow, it is the dualistic expression of like good versus bad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all like self-definition, right? Like there's no actual transcendent version of bad, or that gets into some weird philosophy. But if we look at each chakra, it probably has a light and a shadow side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
That's true.
like
Yeah. Like
the
if it's out of balance versus
uh-huh
in. Okay.
yeah, so like the light side of the solar plexus chakra would be like healthy identity, and the shadow side would probably be like narcissism, or like you know no identity
Mm-hmm.
even. It just depends on what that expression looks like for you. And so yeah, you got that spectrum of experience.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. So if we were to like hop up one chakra, we would find our way to the heart chakra. And I'm doing a podcast episode on this specific chakra because it's such a vibrant part of the human experience. And I think that that's sort of the filter that we access most when we're here or on Earth. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like the Earth chakra. I haven't. I could can I guess I could theoretically I could connect with like other multiversal realities and see if the chakra system is the same, and see if the heart chakra is still what we access to filter our experience. And that's really weird to say. I
That's
could do that, but
over my head.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drop that on everybody. That was a lot. But I do believe that here on Earth, it could be different elsewhere, but here on Earth, the heart chakra is sort of like our primary chakra.
100%.
And when I do this thing called Unity that I learned in my apprenticeship. So in Unity, you're pulling in 4 different types of energies. You're pulling in earth energy, source energy, guide energy, and higher self energy. And then there's actually a 5th aspect of Unity, but that's sort of like that comes later. But these 4 pieces of energy, we pull them into the body from the feet, from the crown chakra, and then the guides will kind of stand in front of us, the higher self will stand behind us, and then they'll kind of just put all of this loving flow in through the heart. And so it really is this beautiful dynamic. It's where I find most of the chords. Sometimes I'll find chords in like another chakra if the relationship is trying to show itself in like a specific way. Like the energy will show up in the chord is like in the solar plexus. That'll kind of show me that the energy is being pulled from this identity space, or like it's
Gotcha.
contributing,
Mm-hmm.
this relationship energy is contributing to like the sense of self more than it's contributing to like love or connection. But most of the time when there's a chord, I'll see it in the heart chakra. What else? Man, there's like this sacred geometric shape that kind of lives in the heart chakra, and it's different for everyone. Let's see. I find some activations there. Like there's like a Christ consciousness activation, where when I say activation, I mean there's like a specific way that we can anchor energy into the energy body. And so if we get an activation, it's either an anchor point in our energy body from like the beyond or from some specific archetype or energy that wants to live in us. Or I'm talking about the energy flowing in a certain way, like a Kundalini release or something like that. But yeah, there's a Christ consciousness activation that lives in the heart chakra. I mean, it's just a good chakra, guys. I don't think you're allowed to pick favorites, but it could be my favorite.
Keeps you alive.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it biologically,
Yeah.
the
But I think
heart.
it keeps you human in the way that the chakra works. It keeps you, hopefully, coming from a place of love, compassion, empathy and lived experience, and knowing that hard is hard and that we are much more in a dualistic or many moralistic, however you want to put that, worlds rather than good versus bad,
Yeah.
or whatever it may be.
Oh,
It kind of keeps us true.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely keeps us true. I would say it could be the energy of unconditional love, the energy of non-judgment, because all experiences belong. And so if we have any experience, it doesn't matter what the experience is, it's a good and valid experience. And it's contributing to our collective experience.
Yep.
So that would be the energy of the heart chakra. Heart chakra is just vibes, guys. So
She pretty.
it's green. Sometimes I'll see it pink when it's children, young children who are just like very like sweet and pure and like innocent. I'll see it pink, and then every once in a while I'll see an adult with like a pink flow. So yeah. Yeah, I don't think yours is pink though.
It's not.
It's green.
I can.
You're like, no, innocent? Did you say innocent? Nope. I'm a Scorpio.
Does not live here. No. But I do sometimes, when we talk about out of alignment, I would say sometimes I give too much of the heart chakra away to compensate, and not enough. I don't give it enough to myself. And that's something I'm actively working on, is giving that love and compassion back to myself. And I think, again, it's going to, like you said, heal one, heal all, but just really healing that part.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I had I was actually working with a friend's energy. She wasn't really a client, but she had this relationship attachment and it was really unhealthy. And it was in the solar plexus, and it was like her soul source of identity. She like needed to be in this relationship to like serve her identity. And it was so draining. And so when we dissolved that cord, the guides and the energy, I don't really know who tells me how to do this work. There's not like a specific face. It could be their guides, it could be my guides, it could be source consciousness. But a lot of times they'll just send me the feeling of what needs to be done. And so they said, take this cord that she's constantly trying to reattach and direct it into her heart chakra and create this like fluid cycle of energy that she's feeding herself so that she's no longer giving her energy away. And it was like the thing, there's lots of things, but it was one of the things that helped shift her out of that relationship energy for good.
Yep.
So we were like, praise. Heck yeah.
I am worthy enough. I am, good enough. I am enough to stand on my own, or to ask for this from, this is what I need in this.
And then like not judging mistakes.
You're valid in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you don't feel enough, or if you do make a mistake that would lead you to like, I'm not enough. Being able to accept those mistakes is just part of the experience.
The learning.
Yeah. There's no judgment. That was the biggest thing that I had to learn. So I'm a Virgo, and like I hear we're judgy. I don't know if it's true or not, but
I don't know, because my other sign is in Virgo. Of my top 3 signs, I'm a double Scorpion Virgo.
Okay, cool. So I would be Virgo, Taurus, and I can't remember the other one. I can't remember what my rising sign is. Sagittarius, maybe. Anyway, so I was really judgmental towards myself. And then here's the thing. Anytime you have some kind of internal narrative, you project it onto the world, right? So the microcosm is the self. The macrocosm would be the image and perception that you're projecting into the world. And so I was so judgmental towards myself. I learned that from religion. There's a freaking Bible verse that said, my righteousness is like filthy rags. Even the good stuff about me was judge worthy. I could judge it.
It wasn't good enough, yeah.
Yeah. Like there was nothing good about me. And
No.
all of my good was like assigned to this far off God.
Well, I know all these lessons because of all the ways I screwed up, not because I gleaned information. Oh.
So yeah,
preach.
punishment.
Yeah.
I was going to go to hell, which is the ultimate judgment. Like in what insane world that we live in that we think that the God of love would send people to eternal torment. I don't know how many times I can say that and still feel shocked by it, but I'm still feeling shocked by it. Like, why did we invent that? That was so dumb and so inaccurate. Not even a good reading of the text. But like judgment was just such a part of who I was. Judgment was what I received from all angles. And so even like culturally, I was still getting judged. Even like in my family system, my parents had the same story religion wise that I did, and they have their own generational like judgment stuff that they had going on, but there were high standards, and so
there's a reason there's a phrase turned or coined Catholic guilt. It was there, and it was
it's a cultural
in everything. Yeah.
Mine was Baptist guilt. I didn't have the Catholic guilt. I had the Baptist guilt, but same difference, right? Like the standards were just really high. And so I learned to judge myself.
They were unattainable to keep you in line. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was this constant shame based narrative. And it was just unhelpful and experienced a lot of self-judgment as a extension of that. And then since I was judging myself, I was just looking out and judging the rest of the world. And so I had to seriously go through so much crap. I had to get to the point where I could not judge the person that I cared the most about. Or I had these experiences where I was like, okay, I got options. I can stop judging everyone, or I can keep judging and I'll lose this most valuable relationship of mine. And so I just had to learn how to quit judging. Yeah. And so I feel freaking blessed. That was like my origin story. Oddly enough, ironically, I feel so blessed that I learned to judge so severely because the pathway to non-judgment is through judgment. And so I judged and I judged and I judged and I judged and I judged myself to the point where I was like sick with autoimmune stuff and just deeply unhappy, deeply depressed. And finally I was like, what the crap can I do to get over this? And the path laid open before me to the point where I was just like, oh, that's what I have to do. I have to stop judging everyone. And I have to start, which is so weird because I started in religion and didn't learn this, but I had to love everyone the same way that the Christ loved everyone.
Even though it's first and only commandment.
Yeah. So the system that was supposed to teach me to love everyone didn't teach me to love anyone.
No.
It taught me to judge everyone and to judge myself. So that pathway to love and non-judgment has been the most freeing thing that I've ever experienced. And that's all in that heart chakra space. So freaking beautiful.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right. So if we bump up one more to the throat chakra, which you've alluded to the throat chakra. You like this chakra, don't you?
It's a double-edged sword, I would say. I would say that I've been silenced before.
Okay.
And I tend to then overcompensate in the places where I can't speak up. I then speak up in others. So I say that I was carjacked in May of 2021 at gunpoint by two men. Okay. We are now in December 2023. They are still out on home incarceration. Still have not gone to trial, and I have no say in it, and I'm angry.
Yeah.
I was very angry. I've finally forgiven him. I'm not saying it absolves him from punishment, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had to release that anger out because it was only hurting myself.
Yeah.
And so because I didn't have a voice there, I started like trying to get a voice in other places, but
Mm-hmm.
not from a place of love and compassion, from a place of like, I will be heard, I will be understood,
Uh-huh.
um, to a detriment.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime you're forcing yourself to be understood, the chances are you probably won't be understood because you aren't communicating who you really are
No,
authentically,
not at
right?
all. Yeah.
That force always adds a little bit of, how could you say it? The force adds maybe a little bit of like, what's it called? Distortion.
Distortion.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
Distortion would be the word I was looking for. It will distort your voice to where it sound like, okay, for instance, my husband, he's a Scorpio, really chaotic, super intense energy. Love him, love him, love him. But sometimes he'll say things and I'll be like, do you not hear yourself?
We
Like
don't.
you,
We don't.
I've considered like recording him in
Mm-hmm.
the way that he talks sometimes because he's so intense. And someone like me, I have been scared of anger for a long, long, long time. And for a person like me to be in the presence of anger, sometimes it's just automatically like triggering. And I'm just like
And you shut
automatically like,
down.
I got to get
Yep.
away from here because I'm so unsafe.
Fight or flight. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets like that sometimes if he's had like, if he's aware and if he's like able to like cognitively put pieces together, he can kind of control the way his voice sounds. But a lot of times he's just like sounding angry, and I'll be like, why are you so mad at me? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not mad. So yeah, that distortion of like,
That's a man thing.
if
I'm
you're
just kidding.
pushing, yeah, I'm sure it probably is a man thing because angry men are even scarier to me than just an angry person, angry
100%.
woman.
And that's been a like conflict, for instance, between me and my partner at times has been very intense, because he will retreat and shut down, and I'm like, no, let's get to it. Let's nail it. But then I go to each end of the spectrum of F it and be done, or let's burn this shit to the ground.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do it one way or the other.
Okay.
And neither of those ways, when I'm communicating in either of those ways, nothing constructive is going to come from it.
Okay. You're in a duality. You're literally holding your hands out
Yep.
one end or the other of this dualistic spectrum that you're in. So yeah, I think it is really helpful to understand that a voice that is speaking doesn't necessarily indicate that it's a healthy voice. It's a healthy throat chakra.
Correct.
I hear a lot of people. I have heard people in the past. It's not like an everyday occurrence or anything. I don't want to exaggerate, but I've heard people say, "Oh, my throat chakra doesn't need any work," and I'm like, "Your throat chakra is way overactive. It needs quite a bit of work. You gotta rein it back in here." Just because you're talking doesn't mean your throat chakra is.
There's got to be discernment in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Discernment. That is such an important word when you're talking about the throat chakra. What do we say? How do we say it? And I talk about this I'll talk about this in the upper chakra system podcast that I'm doing. But the throat chakra is really the manifestation of our internal reality on the external in the external world. And so it's not necessarily just like the things that we're saying, it's also the things we're doing. It's like our action. That's where our action lives.
Do they
And our
line up?
action, yeah, our action needs to be informed by all of that chakra flow. It needs to be informed by the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the identity, the heart. And once it gets to the throat, if we have that healthy flow, then we'll say our words really well.
And we're consistent. Yeah.
Consistent, welcoming, non-threatening, and our actions will be based in confidence and instead of like survival needs or survival mechanisms. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. If we bump up one more time to the third eye, the third eye would be our psychic or our psychic side or our intuitive connection. It doesn't necessarily have to be psychic. Although I don't even know how to talk about psychic. I don't even know what psychic is anymore. I think I've messed the word up for myself. Because sometimes I'll say it and I'll be like, yeah, yeah. And then other times I'm like, no, no, not at all. But it's the connection to, well, I really feel
Other
like
planes. Yeah.
I think it's the connection to the unified field of consciousness. And we can sort of turn the dial and attune to specific pieces of that unified consciousness. And what I mean when I say unified consciousness, I mean the all, like all experiences everywhere, all things everywhere. And so if we have our third eye open and receiving, it doesn't matter if you're doing energy work or, it doesn't matter if you're like an engineer. You can still have an active third eye that receives downloads, that receives little hits of wisdom that you didn't really know you could get, or like pieces of direction, pieces of guidance. And so that's what I mean when I'm talking about the third eye. Absolutely, it includes visuals. Like if you go into a meditative state and you're trying to connect with your guides and you see vibrant visuals of your guide team, it includes that, but it's not limited to that, right? Because sometimes I'll hear people talking about like your third eye connection and it'll seem super hyper focused almost on spirituality and like us, like the energy weirdies.
Yeah.
And it's not limited to us.
No.
Everybody has a third eye.
Everyone has the, kind of that the hair stands up on the back of your neck.
Oh, yeah.
Or all of a sudden you kind of get this like aha moment out of nowhere and it's like, where did that even come from? And it's come from source, from guides, from all this information download. And I think sometimes it's very easy for me to come out of balance, especially with the third eye, because I'll get busy and I just tune out from it. And it's so easy to like disconnect from it. But then every now and then be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Or man, I could really, and it's also not on demand. Let me just say,
Okay.
It is not like I need this and I need it now. I don't feel that's how, at least it doesn't for me. And maybe that's where more healing needs to happen.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. Like, I think you can get used to the feeling of connecting with that third eye energy and you can access it really quickly, right? But I don't feel like anybody is really able to access it when they're in a state of fight or flight.
No.
I don't think that you can access it when you are, I don't know, like there's just a certain setting that has to happen in order for you to really get that connection. And like I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty good at it and I can connect while I'm driving, or I can connect like if there's some kind of guidance that I need immediately, I can be like, okay, let me take a few deep breaths. Let me see.
Like drop into that moment, drop into that space.
The energy. Yeah, it's a dropping in that has to take place in order for me to get it in immediately. But I don't know. I have to be able to do that dropping in thing, right? And you can't do it, like I said, like you can't do it when you're in fight or flight. You can't do it when you're like engaged in like a moment, or I don't know.
Yeah, and I say just like on demand because I feel like so much of society has become like on demand with a lot of things. And so I think, some people when they hear psychic or connection or something, they think like it's automatically going to come to them, or their loved one's just going to like hear or whatever. And it's not that. It's simply if I put that out there, for instance, if I need my mom or my dad to show me something, I know how they come to me. So I can, during a meditative state, go, hey, in the next 12 to 24 hours, if you could help me understand this or show me something or come to me. But then the caveat of that, and I guess the warning sign to that is I also have to be present and aware to receive that, or else I will get busy, distracted, and miss it completely. And they're not going to come thud me on the side of the head. You know?
Yeah. Sometimes you get like boinked on the side of the head, but
Oh,
it doesn't happen all
100%.
the
Yeah.
time. A lot of times you really do have to be in that receiving, like accepting, soft state of being. And I'll add to that, when I'm in session, I set a specific intention for what we're trying to accomplish. And so if we're trying to accomplish healing, and I set out in the energy looking for the things that we need to heal, sometimes I'll meet a wall. Sometimes I'll be like, let's go here. And they'll be like, no, 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 no. Like, that's not what we're doing. And so I say access to the all, but there's a lot of like, you know, I want, if we were to turn it all the way on, number one, we would fry our brain like immediately. There's such a finite, limited human experience that we're having. And so if we were to able to access all consciousness anytime we wanted, we wouldn't be able to have the human experience. We'd be reunited with source, or we'd be reincorporated with source.
Right.
And so there's like a dial, right? It's like a radio, and we're constantly trying to tune to the dial that's going to be the most helpful. And you can only tune to one dial at a time. So there are limits to it. There are limits, but the healthier your third eye, the more fluid this connection becomes. So yeah.
And every other, it feels like to me, in my experience, my other chakras have to be in somewhat balance for me to have that, or me to actively be saying, okay, this is deficit. Where do I meet it? How do I help it? And then this is where I'm trying to go, and kind of making it a fluid moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know that in order, like I've had spiritual connection forever. Like I could get in touch with, I like called it God or the Holy Spirit back then, but I was always connected to something, and I could always feel that connection. But the healthier I get, the more expansive that connection gets, and the easier it is for me to, I do this for a living, right? I am a professional quantum energy therapist. And so for me, it's like, I had to do, the healing I had to do to get here. I freaking tell you what. And like, it's obviously not all done. Like I'll never get to a perfectly healed state.
Nobody does. Yeah.
The destination is the journey. I always say that. Oh, wait. Yeah. And vice versa. The journey is the destination. Did I get that right? I don't know if I got that right. Do you all understand what I mean? I hope you do. But I will say that in order for me to be able to get into the flow that quickly, I had to get a lot of ego out of the way. I had to get a lot of like insecurity, a lot of imposter syndrome out of the way in order for me to be able to confidently say, here's how I'm connecting, and like, here's what I see in your energy. Otherwise I could have just like been just a regular therapist, like on the ground. Right. So yeah, I do really feel like there is like a level of healing, like we said, that the hierarchy, but the hierarchy of needs. But all that to say, you have connection with your third eye, whether you're healed or not. Whether you're an energy therapist or not, whether you know about your third eye or not.
That's why we all have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no gatekeeping. It's accessible and open to everyone. You can pursue it just like me. You can access it just like me, or, in your own unique way, if that's what you want. So yeah, I hope nobody heard any gatekeeping. I hope nobody heard any like, oh, I'm so special with my third eye connection.
I don't take it as that. I take it as it's taken a lot of practice to get there.
It has.
A lot of work. And
half the time I was like, am I seeing this? Is this real? And then I had to like coach myself, like, okay, what do we say when we don't really believe ourselves? This is what we say. We say, I'm going to choose to believe myself until I see proof otherwise. And I'm just setting so many like markers and mantra type things for me to like really access what I think I'm seeing. So yeah, tons and tons of practice. Lots of meditating. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, the last chakra would be the crown chakra. The funny thing about the crown chakra is I just like don't talk about it that much because
A lot of people don't.
I don't think you need to do a whole lot to keep it like healthy. I feel like everyone I've ever seen has a pretty generally healthy crown chakra. It's basically it sits on the top of your head like an actual crown or like a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I don't feel like I've ever seen anyone have a real disconnected crown chakra, right? Like I think that we just always have access to that conscious filtration.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the fractalization occurs. Like through the crown chakra, we enter into the body and the energy enters into the body through that crown chakra. And so there's really not a whole lot of maintenance to be done there, I don't think.
Is there any like, this could be a crown chakra imbalance, or is it not, I guess, function like the other chakras, like the other chakras like that?
Well, the root chakra, okay, there's like another chakra below the feet, and it's the 10th chakra, and it's the connection to earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of functions like a carpet. But recently I sort of saw it functioning like a reverse funnel.
Okay.
And sort of connecting to the root chakra in a similar way that the crown chakra does. So I'm not sure if anybody knows what an aura looks like. But it looks like a donut,
Mm-hmm.
a big bagel. And there's like a hole in the center that connects to the Sushumna. And our auric makeup is sort of like this funnel. Let's see, what's it called? It's called a Taurus yantra, maybe? I'll probably have to look that up and confirm for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's called a Taurus yantra, and it's just like this like circular flow of energy. And so I don't really a chakra, let's see, a crown chakra imbalance may manifest as like schizophrenia.
Okay.
Or maybe like autism would
Mm-hmm.
probably be the other end of that spectrum, where they're getting like so much
Inundation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're inundated, and they sort of have like they're existing in two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Or like two realms of being. So yeah, maybe those, and then the schizophrenia, and this is all conjecture. I've never really worked with anyone who's had active schizophrenia, and so I would need to really look into the energy more to be sure that that's the case. But the schizophrenia seems to me like it would be like sort of cut off,
Mm-hmm.
and there's lots of very like dark earth energy that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of influencing, and there's not a whole lot of external universal energy getting in. So yeah, those would be the two ends of that spectrum, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, the crown chakra's pretty low maintenance, I think.
Pretty standard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your standard chakra. You don't gotta do
standard
anything
issue
with it.
chakra.
Yeah. And I'm sure this will all evolve. And so come talk to me in 2 years and I'll be like, you girl, the crown chakra
Is it?
You don't even know. I was completely wrong. So yeah, I always leave room for that as a possibility or a probability, more likely. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
This was a long we went 15 minutes over that hour. I mean, I always shoot for an hour and I never make an hour. So y'all just going to have to deal with that, and just deeply appreciate the conversation we had. You were so easy to talk to, and really looking forward to being friends. That was such an enlightening conversation, and I'm so grateful for all the times that I get volunteers for people to come onto the podcast and have these really vibrant discussions with me. If you want to be on the podcast, you can go to www.informalmystic.com/theinformalmysticpodcast, and you can fill out one of the forms on the page, and you can either offer an idea for a podcast episode. Maybe there's something you want to talk about. Maybe there's something you'd like to get some education on, and I will get back back to you and we'll get you on that podcast episode. As always, friends, like, share, subscribe, leave me a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Would love to have that little algorithm boost. It really helps me get in front of people and get that message out to a wider audience. So thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time on the Informal Mystic podcast. Stay mystical, friends.